the triple lock is very important. It's something that is there in place to protect pensioner incomes in the future. The government can give no guarantee on it. We give an absolute guarantee on it that pensions will rise by either 2.5% or the rising costs or the average rise of earnings, whichever's the highest.
Now,
and it's something actually I campaigned for from when I was first elected to Parliament in the 1980s, and I have no intention of abandoning those commitments, either then or now.
Now, if you look towards the future, the next couple of years, one of the things that's really going to hit people who are really genuinely struggling to get by is this policy that the Conservatives have of freezing working age benefits. So just to really be clear, are you saying that you would end that freeze on working age benefits?
On work-related benefits, what we will do is we've set aside a large sum of money to deal with the anomalies that exist in the system at the moment. We're dealing with the issue of the capability for work tests, which are extremely unfair on those with disabilities, and we will also raise the living wage to £10 an hour.
Because what I'm a little bit confused about is that you say that there's this big pot of money set aside, and in your manifesto you say £2 billion a year is being spent on things around universal credit. So where is the £3 billion a year that the IFS say would be needed to end the freeze on those benefits?
Well, the issue about universal credit is that it includes housing costs, and housing costs are actually the biggest part of it in some parts of the country, and so we need to look at that and see if there can't, in the longer term, be a separation of them.
So would you end the freeze? I'm just trying to get
yes,
to the bottom of it.
the freeze would be ended because it's very, very unfair on those people who are in receipt of those benefits.
So where is the money coming from? Because it's not in your manifesto.
We've set aside the sum we've mentioned. With that is set aside as a start, and we'll obviously review it as time goes on.
Okay. I'm just keen to get a bit more detail on your priorities, because it does feel as though on benefits, this is where people who are really struggling, the people that you clearly want to help, are going to be hit. Just £1.10 in your manifesto is being spent on welfare. And yet if you look at some of your other big spending commitments, things like £11 billion scrapping tuition fees, £1 billion of free school meals, £6 billion on the triple lock, I mean, a lot of those could be seen as handouts to the middle classes, people who don't necessarily need it.
Free school meals is ensuring every child gets a decent free school meal and they eat it together, and that's important. Improving housing is a very big part of it. Improving the living wage is a very big part of it. And so it will help to eliminate poverty within our society. There are also those at the far end of the scale who've got no house to live in. We will eliminate homelessness as well.
Because it does feel as though on the idea of universal benefits, helping everyone to have free school meals sounds great in theory, but when there's limited money, shouldn't you be focusing more on people on the bottom end of the scale, people who are on benefits?
We're focusing on improving the lot of the poorest and worst off in society. I've mentioned the point about free school meals, I've mentioned the point about housing, I've mentioned the point about pensions, I've mentioned the point about living wage. I've also said we'll bring back the educational maintenance allowance, which will be a help to encourage young people to stay on at school, and that we will make sure there is an opportunity for all those that want to and are capable of getting in to go to university without mounting up debts of £50,000.
Now, another area where I just want to get a bit more clarity about your priorities is Brexit and immigration. So your manifesto says freedom of movement will end when we leave the European Union, and Labour will develop and implement fair immigration rules. So just to be really clear, does that mean you want to see more or less immigration?
Freedom of movement obviously ends when you leave the European Union because it's conditional of the membership of the European Union. We will then have an
or the single market, not necessarily the European
immigration policy that is based on fair migration, that the needs of our society and our economy and the rights of family reunion. I think that has to be the right way of looking at it. But we also have to look at the immigration debate additionally in terms of EU nationals that are resident in Britain, and we will make sure they're able to remain in Britain, and also recognise the enormous contribution made by those that have come to this country in our National Health Service, education and transport industries, because without them we'd have much worse services than we have at the present time.
So I'm still not quite clear if you want immigration to go up or down.
I want there to be fair immigration based on the needs of our society, and that is a proper way of approaching it.
That's not quite what I asked, though.
It's not what you asked, but it's what the Conservatives have offered in the last two elections plus this one. They're going to bring it down. They didn't and they couldn't. And I'm saying that will be fair migration based on the needs of the society, but there will also not be the undercutting of working arrangements in this country by the bringing in of whole workforces to work for very low wages to destroy working conditions in this society. So there will be an end to those agencies that try and recruit workforces overseas.
So you won't say if you want it to go up or down?
I want us to have a society that works and a balance that works, and I cannot get into numbers games because I don't think it works.
It's just a direction of travel. I'm not asking for a target or a limit. I'm just saying, would you like it to go up or down?
What I want is a society that works, and what I want is fair migration. It will probably be lower, but I don't want to start making predictions on that, because the issue has to be the needs of our economy. If we can't recruit the nurses we need, and we ask nurses to come and work here from abroad, if we can't recruit the engineers because the Conservative government hasn't invested in training for so long, then we have to do something about it. We're in a world where a lot of people move around. There are also 2 million people, from British people living all across Europe. I want them to have rights of residence just as much as I want EU nationals in this country to have permanent rights of residence.
Because the reason that I'm kind of pressing you on this is because you're saying that you want freedom of movement to end, which effectively means that UK has to come out of the single market. I understand why Theresa May wants to do that, because she wants to bring immigration down. But if you don't necessarily want to bring immigration down, then why on earth do you want free movement of people to end?
We're leaving the European Union, therefore that principle is changed at that time.
But you could have a Norway model, couldn't you? You could have, accept free movement of people
we
and stay in the single market.
We will negotiate, the principle being tariff-free access to the European market, because that is essential to maintain manufacturing industry and service industry jobs in Britain.
But
Absolutely
you've
essential.
Given up on membership, though, because of free movement of people, and yet you don't really care, it seems, if immigration comes up or down.
What I care about is this country having a good trading relationship with Europe and maintaining our manufacturing industry jobs and our opportunities for trade for the future with the European Union. That requires a Labour government that's going to invest in the economy rather than a government that's going to continue the policy of tax handouts for the top end and tax handouts to big corporations.
I'm interested in the kind of issues of your sort of character, your personality, because you're asking people to vote for you to be the next Prime Minister of the UK. So I just want to show you this editorial. Now, this is taken from the Labour Briefing magazine back in December 1984. Were you General Secretary of the editorial board at that time when that was published?
No, I wasn't even a member of the editorial board.
You weren't a member of the editorial board? Because according to parliamentary profiles by Andrew Roth, authoritative...
Andrew Roth has a wonderful reputation for having the most inaccurate parliamentary profiles known to anyone.
So you were not a member of the editorial board of that magazine in December 1984? Categorically not?
I read the magazine, I wrote for the magazine, I was not a member of the editorial board.
OK. What it says in the article, just in the wake of the Brighton bombing, an attack by the IRA, of course, intended to kill Margaret Thatcher, which killed 5 people, the British only sit up and take notice when they are bombed into it. How does that make you feel, knowing that you wrote for that magazine?
I didn't agree with it. I don't agree with that position. I've always wanted there to be peace in Ireland. I've always wanted there to be an accord, and eventually in 1994 a ceasefire was agreed. That one disappeared, but the second ceasefire came in 1997. I've always wanted there to be peace, and I really welcome the Good Friday Agreement and all the achievements that it's made since then.
So why did you continue to write for that magazine then?
I wrote for the magazine on many issues because it's a magazine that reaches a number of people within the Labour Party and the Labour movement. There are many things in many papers and many magazines with which I profoundly disagree. Does that mean I don't engage? There are programmes on your station that I don't really agree with. You probably don't agree with them either. Isn't that what open debate and journalism is about? Now, sometimes listening to people that you don't agree with does you good.
Now, your associations during the 1980s, which I accept is a long time ago, have clearly come under scrutiny recently. And time again, it does appear as though you backed people who opposed the British forces. You were arrested at a demonstration in support of an IRA terrorist in 1986. You were regular at IRA-linked Troops Out rallies. You didn't support the SDLP, who were trying to pursue a united Ireland through peaceful means. So how can you say that you were trying to talk to all sides of the agreement when it does appear as though there is one clear side that you were backing, and that is hardline Republicans?
I worked with colleagues in Parliament in the SDLP and the Labour Party. I visited Northern Ireland on a number of occasions. I met people from right across the spectrum. I went on delegations of the Northern Ireland Committee of the Parliamentary Labour Party. I represent a constituency which has a very large number of Irish people living in it, and I pointed out that the Prevention of Terrorism Act was counterproductive and was criminalising large numbers of wholly innocent Irish people. I took up the cause of the Guildford 4 and Birmingham 6, who were grotesquely misjudged by British courts and eventually were freed on the decision of the High Court in Britain, and I wanted to bring about peace in Ireland. You have to talk to people with whom you don't agree. I did.
If you have to talk to people with whom you don't agree, can you talk of any extremist loyalists then who you spoke to?
I met numbers of loyalists in visits to Stormont and other places, and discussions with them of their views on how things could come about. Because fundamentally, the peace in Ireland came about because of a preparedness to talk, because of the Hume Adams Accord, because of what happened after that with the Good Friday Agreement.
So can you condemn unequivocally the IRA?
Look, bombing is wrong. Of course, all bombing is wrong, and of course I condemn it.
But you condemning all bombing, though? Can you condemn the IRA without equating it to...
No, I think what you have to say is all bombing has to be condemned, and you have to bring about a peace process. Listen...
So do you condemn the IRA?
Wait a minute. Let me finish, please. In the 1980s, Britain was looking for a military solution in Ireland. It clearly was never going to work. Ask anyone in the British Army at that time. And therefore, you have to seek a peace process. You condemn the violence of those that laid bombs, that killed large numbers of innocent people, and I do.
So can you condemn the IRA?
I've just condemned all those that did bombing, all those.
If you let me finish as well,
after
I've just let you finish, that would be appreciated.
All those on both sides that laid bombs.
But can you condemn the IRA without equating the IRA, who were responsible for 60% of the deaths during the Troubles, with the British security services, who were responsible for around 10%.
And there were loyalist bombs as well, which you haven't mentioned.
Yeah, 30%.
There were loyalist bombs as well. I condemn all the bombing by both the loyalists and the
Can you just say... But you won't just talk about...
Wait a minute. I don't know quite what point you're trying to make here. Those of us that wanted peace in Ireland worked very hard for it. That Labour government in 1997 worked very effectively to achieve that. It was the Thatcher government that was going in after the collapse of Sallingdale that went very much in the direction of a military solution, which clearly didn't work. Hence, we eventually got the agreements and the ceasefire, which was painstaking and got there. But the fundamentals of the accord are actually that you recognise the traditions, all the historical traditions of Ireland, both the unionist and the nationalist traditions.
So you don't believe you did anything wrong and that you have nothing to apologise for?
I represent a constituency that had many people had been criminalised under the PTA. I represented people who had been wrongly put in prison for a very long time for crimes they did not commit. I recognised that you had to bring about a peace process in Ireland. I did my best to assist in that process, and that is the way you bring about peace anywhere around the world. And later on, after the Good Friday Agreement, the Northern Ireland process became a bit of a model around the world. Martin McGuinness travelled a great deal, as did those from the unionist side as well, to other parts of the world to help try and promote that kind of peace dialogue.
So John McDonnell has apologised for some of the comments he made. You don't believe you have anything to apologise for in any of the associations or the decisions you made?
I've told you what my principles behind it were. You were very well aware of what I was doing during that period, and I think we've achieved a much better place in Ireland. And a lot of people made a lot of contributions to that. Unionists, Republicans, MPs from all parties in Britain, political parties of all shapes in Stormont made a contribution to that. So Northern Ireland, and indeed the whole of the island of Ireland, is in a much better place as a result of it. The Troubles were a terrible period.
Yeah, I think no one would certainly disagree with you on that point.
And I've talked to people in the army, soldiers who were there at the time, they would agree as well.
Is there an issue where, if you look through your manifesto, there are clearly policies in there that are very popular, policies that you've been fighting for, domestic policy, since before I was born. Are you worried that your position on things like national security and foreign affairs is going to mean that millions of people can't vote for your popular domestic policies as a result?
No, because our position is this. We want social justice in Britain. We want security around the world, obviously. Therefore, the issues that are not being addressed, such as the cybersecurity attacks on this country last week, have to be addressed. And we will, through a strategic defence review, look at those issues and make sure that we are properly prepared for what is the latest modern form of warfare. But it's also about security in our own society, real security, which is people having somewhere decent to live, some hope of getting a decent job, and some hope that they will have a health and education service that's there for them at all times. Security comes in lots of forms.
Are you going to win then, the election?
It's going very well. Large numbers of people are flocking to join the Labour Party and join in our campaigns, and the manifesto is very, very popular because it's serious, it's prepared, it's costed. 95% of the population will not pay any more for it, and indeed those on $90,000 a year will only pay £500 more, and it'll be graded beyond that in order to pay for decent education, decent health service and proper respect for the older population by protecting their pensions.
Len McCluskey suggested it would be a successful campaign if you won 200 seats. Do you agree with that?
Len McCluskey was thinking out loud, I believe. I haven't spoken to him before or since then. Obviously know him, but haven't spoken to him very recently. We're campaigning to win this election. We are mobilising a lot of people to win this election. Large numbers of people who've never voted before are registering to vote. And you know what? They're having a conversation about the kind of society we are and the kind of direction in which we go. I think it's about time we had that conversation, and I'm very happy to be part of it, and I'm enjoying it.
Jeremy Corbyn, thank you very much.
Thank you.